like to talk to you about For Honor. It's a game I wanted to like. I really like the idea, I like the premise, I like the designs, but For Honor has a lot of glaring issues. First, the peer-to-peer is horrible. It really is. People can abuse the peer-to-peer system simply by, if you have your Ethernet cable next to you. There are even people who've modded their Ethernet cable to have a kill switch. So all they have to do is kill switch their connection for a second, and you could kill them. Zill's done this a ton of times. Like, he'd beat an enemy, behead them, they'd kill switch their internet or unplug their Ethernet cable, plug it back in, and the game would just give them full energy back, or most energy back, and then turn around and kill Zill. That's why he stopped playing. The peer-to-peer, which...
We're going to show you how to build a lag switch. And we've gone ahead and done that. Now let's put it to the test and see what we can do with this thing. So let's say you're playing an online game. You and another guy are facing off. Well, if you were to flip on your lag switch, you would appear frozen to him. In the meantime, you can run behind him, flip it back on, and as the server resyncs, you will end up behind him, where you can do whatever you want.
And maybe the reason why it's peer-to-peer has led to the entire game just losing everything. There's so few players on now. And also, the skill behind each character. Yes, there's a strategy. Yes, you can be rewarded for being good. But more often than not, a player who spent a great deal of time trying to understand the subtle nuances of their character can be defeated by random sword swings. This, in and of itself, I can honestly understand how it could be infuriating for many people. Also, Ubisoft made some huge mistakes between the alpha, the beta, and the full release. Unfortunately, like an idiot, I deleted my early footage of For Honor, showing the far superior video tutorial, and it showed you how to do every intricate combo break, etc. It was an awesome tool. It was great, dude. It was perfect. That's how I learned how to play, because they gave you a full understanding of how to do the character with button prompts and everything. Ubisoft, by the time the game was released, or the last beta came out, the open beta, they took away this feature, and they completely got rid of it. They gave like this video tutorial that was so lackluster it wasn't funny. It's almost kind of like, why even bother with this? And I think they did this to get people to go to YouTube pages, to see in-depth YouTube videos featuring YouTubers that were affiliated with the For Honor game. This, to me, was a huge letdown. It was a way to force me to go give traffic to another YouTube channel and go through all these hoops to see these special combos that before was at the touch of a button within the game. I didn't have to open up a browser on my second screen to find this shit out and then listen to someone talk to me for a while before showing me what I actually wanted to know. I felt this move was disgusting. It was stupid. It killed a lot of my buzz for the game. It killed a lot of my respect for the game. On top of that, the microtransactions. Before Ubisoft, or Ubisoft, whatever you want to call it, tomato, before they released the game, they put out a press statement saying that they were going to do away with the microtransactions in their games because they understood gamers were sick of it. They were probably going to redesign their season pass. I think they only said that because of The Division, which I like to call The Division for fun. The player base has shrunken so much that the other DLC packs they're going to put out are just scrapped, and they're going to put out some little updates for the game that they're going to call DLC. But the updates are kind of like things that should have been in the game from the start. And at this point, it's like, who gives a damn? The game's dead. The only people who care are on your forums. Those poor bastards. And as I was saying about the microtransactions, if you want any of the epic or heroic armor skins with some of the cooler emotes, you'd have to spend money. Or you'd have to play For Honor. I have no clue how long you'd have to play, but you'd have to dedicate a strong portion of your life daily to grinding to get that gold to be able to afford one of the epic rare skins. It's just kind of like, fuck it. You know, just fuck it. The loot box system seems like it was modeled loosely on what Overwatch had achieved. But the difference is you aren't going to get anything too epic or rare from that loot box until you get a couple levels of prestige. And frankly, for the average player who's trying this out and wants to get into the game but they don't have much incentive to stay, this seems too much to me like a cat getting slapped in his face. Pull in the wrong direction. A very, very wrong pull. I almost want to say I don't know what the thought process is, but I know what it is. Ubisoft wanted to make as much money as they possibly could. They wanted to capitalize on this as much as they possibly could because there was a lot of interest in For Honor. And I guess they just, honest to God, thought that they were going to do better with this game than they actually did. And honestly, the reason why For Honor is in the state it's in is because of the poor decision making at Ubisoft. Also, the controls. They aren't bad, but they aren't great either. There are pros and cons to mouse and keyboard, just as there are pros and cons to using a controller. The mouse and keyboard seems to be the fastest in response time, but there is one caveat, and that is with the simple fact that the mouse, on occasion, at least me and Zilla have run into this numerous times, the mouse offers superb defensive and attacking capabilities. But if you rest your hand on your mouse like every gamer does, and you put it in a direction of block and attack, for some reason, Ubisoft's game, like, I don't know how it happens, sometimes it sets itself to the opposite direction. Like right in the middle of a block, like you throw your hand there and maybe there's like a minute hand movement or gesture that you don't realize while going over, then sets it to an opposite direction. It's hard to explain, but there have been numerous times where I was using this feature, like the mouse and keyboard, and I'd block and all of a sudden the second attack will come through and I get hit and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I look and my block is in the other direction. I think to myself, why is that happening? Do I have to keep pushing the mouse to the left to block to the left to make sure that it doesn't revert to the right? Is that what's going on here? Like, I don't understand. With the controller, this issue doesn't happen. And I find that moving from, like, getting out of a guard stance is quicker. Like getting out of the guard stance, because you just let go of the guard button and then you're out of guarding and you can run off to sort of roll out of the way of an onslaught of attacks. That's the boon of the controller over the mouse. But there is a latency issue with the Xbox One controller. I'm gonna guess it's around a quarter of a second. I'm gonna say it's a quarter of a second as far as the latency. Now, a quarter of a second, that might not sound like a lot to you, but in a game like For Honor, a quarter of a second determines whether you're gonna get your head cut the fuck off. And it sucks. So when using a controller, it almost leads you to having to predict what your opponent's going to do. I feel like I have more control with a controller, but less speed and accuracy than a mouse and keyboard offers. Each one has a pro and con. It really is like, it's a flip of the coin. Like Zell routinely adjusts between these two. I've just accepted my fate and I'm using the controller. I would rather a mouse and keyboard, but for some reason, if I can't get that block off, that could be the end of me. And my character is based strongly on defense and not so much on attack. The story mode for For Honor is tacked on at best, really is. The story mode in For Honor is essentially kind of another version of the training mode, which is odd because the game offers a training mode in multiplayer. And you find yourself playing through story mode and they force you to go through the same shit you went through in training mode, except against, you know, NPCs. And it is what it is. Honestly, I mean, Ubisoft is in a tough spot here. If they did release a game without a story mode, people will complain. Where's the story mode? And now they put on a story mode, people, including myself, are kind of like, it feels tacked on. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, I guess. The story mode gives some explanation as to what's going on in For Honor and with Apolia. And that's about it, just some. Nothing is overtly clear. And with each progression, the Knights are the easiest to start out with. Then the Vikings are intermediate level. And the Samurai are hard as far as skill base. Now I'll say there were only 2 boss fights that felt cheap to me on hard. And that was the last boss fight for the Vikings, which I wish I didn't delete that, because it would have been funny for you to see the last Orochi draped in gold beat the shit out of me for like 2 hours straight. I mean, he was better than any human I ever played in For Honor. And it should be, considering I guess it's a boss battle, and on top of that, it's a computer, it could read what the fuck I'm gonna do and counter it instantaneously. And Apolia, who was the last boss battle in the Samurai storyline. But she wasn't nearly as hard as trying to beat an Orochi with the fucking Viking, which is supposed to be a lesser boss battle. It was almost Dark Souls-ish, because it's like you fight this one boss battle, and it's not the main boss, and it tears your ass to pieces for hours. And then you fight the main boss, and you beat the main boss, and you're like, that other boss should have been the main boss because this wasn't as tough as that. What the fuck is going on here? Overall, at least in story mode, you get to see more of the levels. And the weird thing is that The levels are quite beautiful, actually, and they're bigger than we see. In multiplayer mode, we only see one section of levels. In story mode lets you see entire, compounds for the samurai, a forest area. Like, why aren't these incorporated in the online mode? How come there isn't more of this? Maybe these will become levels later on as DLC. Who knows what Ubisoft is thinking here? But it's a real shame. It almost reminds me of Overwatch again. When you play Capture the Flag, you get to see more of the levels for that game than you saw before. And it's just like, I had no idea there were this many areas and it was this beautiful. What the fuck? I'm gonna end it with this. For Honor is a game that had what it took to be really good. And I'm pretty sure Ubisoft was aiming to make this one of those competitive esports games. But with the way it's going, I mean, really, there won't be enough people interested in For Honor to warrant having a live stream tournament event. I mean, For Honor feels like it's going down the road of Evolved. Like, you don't see anybody doing tournaments for Evolve because the community doesn't fucking exist anymore due to poor choices by the fucking developers. The microtransactions, peer-to-peer, the simple fact that even while playing the game, 9 times out of 10, if you beat the shit out of someone and you can't get that kill blow in before they turn around and run to get their friends, and then they all come back like in a group of 3 to get you, because your teammates are trying to kill one guy on the other side of the map. Now you're fighting 3, and I'm okay at the game. I'm not a god. I can't take 3 people at once. It becomes infuriating. Within itself, the community has become anything but honor. So add the community dwindling in the fact that everybody is into backstabbing. Add the fact that peer-to-peer can be exploited by anyone who gives enough of a shit to be a piece of shit. Hell, you could even use like a VPN to do this. Oh god, I'm giving people tips. Forget it. The fact that the peer-to-peer could be abused and exploited for cheap wins, easy victories for anyone who has no morals or scruples, which is pretty much the entire internet. The microtransaction. The story mode that's pretty much tacked on. Like, you'll probably play it once and you go, ugh. Unless you are unless you're a die-hard fan for Honor. The only reason to play the story mode again is to beat realistic mode after you've beat all the other modes. And then try and collect all the hidden pots and stare at all the hidden features and find what little lore you could discover in the game. If you're not die-hard, you aren't gonna give a shit. And that's about it, honestly. For Honor, I like it, I don't love it. And the sad thing is, I like it, but I don't like it enough to play it that much anymore. I really don't, and that's a shame because it was fun up until, the douchery with the peer-to-peer networking started just kicking off. And don't get me started on the fucking issues with the online connection in the sense of, like, as of late, I couldn't log into For Honor. So to make up for it, Ubisoft gives you a couple days of special XP bullshit. But if you're already burned by the game, you'll probably play for a day and go, you know what, I don't care about this anymore. I got other shit I could play that doesn't crash and I can't log in for days or whatever. For Honor, like, if they put it on a server, that I would probably come back then. That's the least they could do. And put it on a server so you don't have to deal with people using cheap tactics to get wins. And the matchmaking, people quitting in the middle of a match when they start losing, so on and so forth. And I know they want to make a competitive mode, but why? I mean, really, why would you make a competitive mode when all of these glaring problems exist? And whoever has whoever is serving as the server or whatever for the match, whoever the match is connecting to, they have an overwhelming advantage due to the connectivity. I'm done with this. For Honor, unless you are absolutely positively madly in love with the game's themes, then you could buy it. If you find it on sale and you're just interested in playing it every now and then, but you don't want to take it seriously or anything, that's fine. It's not a game that I would recommend to anyone who wasn't really, really, really into medieval warfare. If Ubisoft made this more like Chivalry, they would have had a hit on their hands. They would have. Like, if this had more of an element like Chivalry with more people playing, some NPCs, who cares, ballistas, siege opportunities, taking castles, that sort of stuff, I think For Honor would have been huge. And I think that's another problem. Like, the story mode, you take castles, you do all this stuff, but it's not in the game. It's not in the multiplayer. Imagine if you had to fight back enemy soldiers to get to a checkpoint, to then get siege items to siege the enemy's castle. Imagine how cool that could have been. But they just didn't. The fact that it exists in, the single player makes you think, like, this is an element that could be cool for multiplayer, but it's not there. And it would give us the ability and the opportunity to see all the levels, to develop new tactics, because you'd fight on different terrains throughout the match. But, I'm just a dreamer, as John Lennon would say. Imagined for honor, didn't use peer-to-peer. It's easy if you tried. Where's my fucking guitar? I'm done with this. I wanted this to be like 5 minutes tops. And somehow it is far longer than 5 minutes. How the fuck did that happen? Well, I can actually give more of a fuck to me. Rate, comment, subscribe if you so choose. If not, that's fine by me. And I'll see you later. Adios, bichachos.